about this. I tell you, I've done a bunch of presentations about kids cooking over at Kids Cook Real Food, kind of my other hat. And I just realized, like, why am I not sharing stuff with people at Kitchen Stewardship? I love talking, I love teaching. And so I'm super excited to have you all here. I've seen a lot of overwhelm. I've seen a lot of mamas trying so hard. And I just know this is needed. And I gotta stop touching my desk. I'm making everything jiggle. You don't need jiggles. We're going to talk today about how we don't need perfection. However, I also don't need to be making everything jiggle, right? So a little bit of business to take care of. My team member Sonia is in the chat. She just introduced herself. And so she'll be in there. You know, she can like catch an question, or if you miss something that I said, she can copy that in. She'll also be able to collect questions. So if you know, I can kind of see the chat, and sometimes I'll be able to grab a question live, like right in the midst. But sometimes it makes more sense to wait until the end, until the Q&A. So if you ask a question first, you can use, there's like a little, I think a Q&A box that you can use, and we'll make sure that we start there at the end of the presentation. But also Sonia will be grabbing any questions that just kind of come up in the chat, and she'll put those where I can find them at the end. Sonia, let me know if my audio is okay. Is my volume okay? I got my new like fancy mic, but I always worry that it won't work because it's so far away from me. Isn't that funny? We women, we just worry. Cool. Yay, thanks. Okay, so that means the chat's working, the microphone's working, I'm not late. This is great. This is great. Now I can click another button and see, oh yeah, we got some people coming in. As you come into the room, ladies and gentlemen, it's fun for me to see like who's here. So just let me know like where you are in the world. If you have kids, maybe let me know like how many kids you have, because your responses that were coming in an email were just, again, like encouraging me that this is super needed. But we had everybody from like the picky toddlers, so like I have 3 teenagers and I can't keep up, and kind of everywhere in between. I'm pretty sure a couple of the people, because of their challenges, didn't have kids. So I think this is great. It's a great mix. But I'd love to see, you know, who you are in there. And then just to let you know, like if you're in the chat, you can choose all panelists, which would mean I would only see it, or click, and Sonia, you should definitely click this little drop down and choose all panelists and attendees in the chat. That's more fun, right? Because then everybody can join in on the conversation. So if you're going to be, you know, part of the chat with all these other lovely ladies and gents coming in, definitely click all panelists and attendees. Yeah, so I'd love to see people introduce yourselves in the chat. I'm pretty sure you can hear me. Now I see only Sonia has typed anything in the chat. So if you're here, at least say hey, you know, on your phone, H-E-Y. and if you like chatting, which I think it's fun. I think it's fun to see people, you know, getting into it, and feel free to ask questions at any time. If I don't answer it right away, Sonia will grab those. And just like let us know who you are, where you're from, what kids you have, you know, who peed on the floor today. Maybe not that, but you know, we're people. Things have been happening in our lives. Love it. We got Laura here. Big welcome to you. And oh, move the mic. I can probably get that a little closer. Maybe get it higher. I can get myself closer. I just need to stop like standing back and talking with my hands. Let me know, Sonia, if this isn't quite loud enough, because I definitely want this to be loud enough. Big welcome to Melissa from Ontario, Canada. A little 21-month-old girl. Hi to Lois from Indiana. Oh, a grandma of 5. I love having grandmas. Therese is here from Amarillo. Amarillo. I know how to pronounce that in Spanish. Oh, this is great. This is great. Welcome, you guys. Oh, I see it's just about the top of the hour, so I'm going to get started. Just making sure. I always have to like have all the things. Got the water. Okay, cool. Thanks, Sonia. Let me see. I've got a little dial here I can turn up. I just turned up a dial on my audio. Hopefully I didn't blow anybody's brains out. This is a little fancy for Katie. It's a little bit of a fancy mic for me. Oh, good. Cool. Big welcome to Corey from Florida. Great. I love seeing everybody come in. And yeah, as you're coming in, just introduce yourself in the chat. Do make sure you click all panelists and attendees, because that will let the conversation happen with everybody and not just me. I'm the only panelist. Big welcome to Kathy from Kansas. Two 12-year-olds and an 18-year-old. So you are feeding, that's a lot of hungry people. Okay, good deal. Hey to Leah from Chicago, Mama 4. I have a Leah, one of my daughters, well, my only daughter, one of my kids' name is Leah. Okay. Good deal. Thank you guys. Thank you all for being here. I know again that this is going to be a super helpful presentation. You are here for a presentation called Transform. And hopefully you're seeing the right thing. Baby steps to lasting change in your family's wellness. And the idea here is that I know a lot of you have been trying really hard to make changes. And when we backslide, sometimes we give ourselves a lot of guilt. And we want to get rid of that today. We want to celebrate those baby steps. And we're going to learn about our brain and how we can kind of hack that to make things work. So I mentioned that I am a mama for myself. And, you know, when my daughter, number 2, was born, my oldest son, Paul, kind of took her under his wing and taught her all sorts of stuff. And then when baby number 3, John, was born, Leah took him under her wing and taught him all sorts of stuff. We call this the trickle down effect, right? Parent the top one, right? And things sort of trickle down. And so our youngest, Gabriel, now he's 5 now. So as you can imagine, he's under a lot of wings, but especially John. He and John, you know, they're the bottom 2 in the birth order. They share a room. They are just tight brothers. And this one day when Gabe was 4, he and I were having a little bit of a head-to-head in the dining room. I can just picture it. And he's standing there and he's sitting in his feet and he's sitting his jaw. And you can just see that he's about, whatever I was asking him to do, he was about to tell me no. And I was starting to lose my temper. And John comes in and literally just puts his arm around Gabe, sweeps him just around the corner, not far enough that I couldn't hear though, which was great. And I hear John go, buddy, I don't want you to learn from failure today. Come with me. And he said that because, you know, we talk a lot out loud about our parenting and how good it is to learn from failure. He goes, not today, buddy. I don't want you to learn from failure here. He could see that things were going wrong. And that's what I want for you today, right? I know that it's good for all of us to learn from failure, but man, right, as adults, we have plenty of opportunities to fail and learn from that. So today, I just want to grab you by the shoulder and say, come over here. Take a look. Here's some things I've learned so that you've just got, you know, a couple more tools where maybe you don't have to learn from failure. You can save that for some other area of your life or some other area of your kitchen. And I still remember like the first recipe that I made up, that I like totally made up from scratch. I was a senior in college in this like basement, dingy, dark apartment on Jolly Road in East Lansing, Michigan. And I had like a little bit of a couple things left over. I had some taco meat, I had some white rice, and some frozen corn in the fridge. And I thought, I think I could make something out of this. Like it wasn't really enough to have tacos. So I put all that in a pot, opened a can of kidney beans, put in some water and some like beef bouillon and a half a packet of taco seasoning, right? And mixed it all up and it smelled good. And I took my first bite and I was like, oh, I have created taco soup. And I was like so proud of myself. I grabbed a little piece of paper like this and I write taco soup by Katie Shabella, my maiden name. And, you know, 1/2 cup leftover taco meat. Like I was so proud of this like taco soup, which I mean, obviously like this was not gourmet. This is like nothing special, but when you're just learning, like everything's exciting. And I tell you, oh, the failures though, that year, the next year when I was student teaching, I called my mom. Well, hardly ever. Like I'm the type of kid who didn't call her mother and I still don't call my mother. She's probably watching this just so she can hear my voice. No kidding. But I would call her when I was in the kitchen and I can picture myself the next year calling her and going, Mom, so I bought a whole chicken and I know you used to do this thing with a whole chicken and like I think it was a slow cooker and was there celery involved? Like, please help. So grab my little scrap piece of paper again. I probably still have it around in my recipe box, which I don't get into anymore because Pinterest, right? And I wrote chicken broth and I wrote down whatever my mom told me on the phone. And, you know, as much as I'll tease the way I grew up in other presentations sometimes that, you know, I'm a child of the 80s and in the 80s, convenience food was king. And I'm really grateful looking back that my mom, I think, was a level up from convenience food, to be honest, because even though like I use like, I can't believe it's not butter, a little squirty on my potatoes, and like her homemade spaghetti sauce had 2 cans of Campbell's cream of tomato soup in it. So it wasn't as homemade as it sounded, but she did make chicken broth from scratch and roasts and potatoes in the oven. And, she made homemade bread. And so I did like have some sense of what homemade could be. Right. So when I started my own family, when I got married after that student teaching, just 1 year later here, at least chicken broth was like the normal for me. I never really bought chicken broth because I knew how to make it. And I didn't have to like have this huge hurdle to get over of like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to buy a whole chicken now to be healthier, because I had bought whole chickens, right? And I just feel like every little step, every little habit or technique that can be slowly part of your normal is the way to achieve like climbing this mountain of wellness. It's not doing it all at once. So I'm always grateful to my mom for like giving me sort of that foundation. And then I got even healthier yet when I got pregnant. And I just remember like Googling, I don't even know if it was Google. Oh my gosh, 2004 was Google around? Whatever search was called in 2004. On dial-up, hello, I'm trying to figure out what I'm supposed to eat as a newly pregnant woman. And I'm reading about protein and 2 eggs a day and greens. And I'm like, hormonal. And I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way this baby is going to turn out horribly, right? Because we women sometimes go overboard. And but yet, bit by bit by bit, like the very first change I made when we entered our pregnancy birth classes was to switch margarine for butter. That's not hard, right? That's not a habit change. That's just buying something different at the store. And it's those kind of habits that we're going to talk about a lot more today. Okay. And so it's just kind of little things that I want to make sure that you can do. Let me just make sure I got my slides here. Okay, cool. We are in the right place. And my kids weren't perfect either, because it was a slow thing. Paul, my oldest, he's 14 now. He ate cereal for breakfast and he had candy before he was 1. And every kid had candy a little bit later, right? Baby number 2, Leah, was like 16 months because Halloween happened. Baby number 3, John, I think he was at least over 2. I'm not even, poor baby number 3. I always forget John's milestones. And then Gabe, baby number 4, he didn't have candy until after he was 3, because every time it got better. Not that like the first time you have candy, not that sugar is like the litmus test of how healthy you are, but it's a milestone. It's like a way I can look and go, oh, like I was making different healthy changes every 3 years. We would have a new kid and there would be obvious changes in between because each of them had a different babyhood. And they still eat candy. They're 5, 8, 11, and 14, and they still eat candy. We haven't cut that out yet. But the thing is, they're learning how to regulate for themselves how not to overdo it, because I don't think the world's going to have any lack of candy or sugar anytime soon in their lifetime. So that's the goal today, you guys. How to get habits in place that stick with balance and with a lot of grace and forgiveness for ourselves. Okay, so you are definitely in the right place. If you've ever made healthy goals before and you couldn't seem to quite stick to them, if you're like, Katie, I want to get healthier, but I don't even know where to start. Or if you get overwhelmed by all the crazy amounts of healthy living information online and Facebook and your feeds, and you just kind of want to give up. I got a lot of emails from you guys this week. And I heard a lot about the pressures of time. I heard about worries that you weren't able to make foods that your whole family enjoyed. I heard many of you wished you weren't buying so many convenience foods. This is for you, okay? But you have got to promise me that you'll give yourself grace in the baby steps, okay? We can't expect to make all the changes right away. So like that 1 box of granola bars you're still buying, or the cereal for breakfast because you're exhausted, that's not failure. It's not a cause to give up. It's just an opportunity to do something a little bit different, okay? I gotta find my chat window again. Hold on. How do I do that? I don't wanna miss any. I don't wanna miss what you guys are saying. There it is. Okay. Chat window, notes. We are ready to jump in. In the next 45 minutes, here's what you can look forward to. I'm going to get your brain motivated, primed about why you want to be healthier. I'm going to teach you about how your brain works and why baby steps is the best method to make these healthy changes. Then we're going to avoid brain overwhelm. There's a lot of stuff that we are not going to talk about today. And then just simple 5 things that you can do in the kitchen. You're only allowed to choose one, but I'll tell you why these 5 things really make an impact. At Kitchen Stewardship, we really try to balance your health with your budget, your limited time, and the environment. So all 5 of these changes are going to balance all 3 of those. Then we'll talk about 5 things that are kind of on the X list that you might consider cutting out. Again, one at a time, once a week. And at the end, just a little encouragement about really simple habits that are totally free, that are healthy. And hopefully during those, you can just give yourself a pat on the back, like, oh yeah, we do those. Good for us. And in the chat, I'd love to hear you guys. Why do you want to make these healthy changes? What motivates you today? Now, some people get motivated because they worry, right? We look at what does our standard American diet do to our families and due to our health. And we know right now that about half of all Americans are on a prescription, and half of those are on 3 or more prescriptions. Okay, and 1 in 5 children are on a regular prescription for a chronic disease. About 3/4 of doctor visits, that's how they end. You get prescribed something that's going to cover the symptoms instead of fixing the root cause. Today, we are all about root cause resolution. Now, the standard American diet has been incredibly expensive, okay? We spend in America $3.5 trillion, not the government, but us, the people, $3.5 trillion on healthcare. Most of this is driven by trying to care for chronic disease. I am shocked by the statistic that 60% of adults have 1 chronic disease and 40% have 2 or more. This is not okay with me. This is not what I want for myself, and it's not what I want for my kids. Now, those stats are from the CDC, and even the CDC lists 4 factors. Poor nutrition is in there, along with tobacco, which is easy to cut out, excessive alcohol use, which is easy to cut out, and lack of physical activity, which has an easy answer. Poor nutrition is the only one that's like really a web of like trickiness. It's hard to get out of it. The worst news is that although the US spends almost the most among like all of the developed nations on healthcare, their results are nearly at the bottom. Okay, we spend almost $10,000 per person in the average family on healthcare. I would much rather see that going to food and getting us these healthy habits. Okay. Oh, I love your answers. I gotta see here. Fauna says, I want to show my kids that what a healthy lifestyle looks like, and the preventative side of being healthy food is medicine. Oh, you're my people, Fauna. Betsy says, I want us to be healthy, bodies working well, have energy. She's a busy homeschool mom of 5. And yeah, you got a lot going on. You need energy for that, Betsy. Lynn says, my husband and I both want to be healthier as we get older and teach our daughter eating habits. All of you who have kids, the idea of like starting them off right, super powerful and very, very important. Just another statistic is that over 70% of American adults are obese or overweight combined. Whew, 1 in 3 high school students are already obese or overweight. So how much worse is that going to get? Now, I know you can say, Katie, but there's health at every size. And that's true. And I don't believe that weight is like the single most important factor in our health. However, statistically, weight is very correlative with type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. So it's something that we really want to be aware of, right? Now, we know that our poor nutrition is hurting our kids as well. We've seen ADHD diagnoses nearly double since the 90s. There's a lot of theories about why that is, but I think part of it's got to be the way we're feeding our kids' brains and the way we're feeding their bodies. We know right now that 14% of our teens have depression and over 30% experience anxiety every day. I just went to a talk yesterday on anxiety. Like, I used to say 30% have depression and anxiety combined. No, this counselor said 30% of American teenagers have anxiety every single day. We've got 7 million kids on psychiatric drugs. almost 10% of our population. You go into a classroom, that means in a classroom of 25, 2 or 3 kids are already on medication for their brains. I would, again, so much rather see these kids eating well and fueling their bodies correctly without needing medication. Medication. Now, I like to give you really practical steps. So when you see a slide like this with sort of the green flag in the background, we're going to talk about one little thing you can do tonight. Write it down, take a screenshot, whatever you need to do. Tonight, I think it's just so important to get your brain in the right place and talk to your significant other or a very close friend or your mom about why you feel healthy living is important. Really set that intention in stone so that you remain motivated as you work on healthy changes. Now, one of the reasons I told you to do that is because I know how the brain works, okay? There's a super cool book called The 6 Stages of Change, and these researchers looked at how human beings make changes in their habits. For example, things like quitting smoking or starting an exercise regimen. And they realized that the brain goes through these 6 stages, and if a stage is skipped, the person is very likely to fail at their goal. And I think a lot of the reasons that we moms are failing at healthy living is because we're skipping some of these stages. So we got to allow ourselves to go through all 6 stages. Now I'm going to buzz through these like a professor, but then we'll kind of talk about what they mean, okay? So stage number 1 is pre-contemplation. And in pre-contemplation, basically you don't even see the problem. You feel like it's out of your control. Ignorance is bliss. And you might not even want to talk about the problem. So in our case, the problem is healthy living, right? Having enough energy, making changes in your kitchen. Probably none of you here are in pre-contemplation because you're here, okay? If you feel like you are still pre-contemplative, it's kind of out of your control, you don't even think there's a problem, you don't need to make any changes, well, you're probably not ready for what I'm going to share today. You need to do more reading and get those stats like freaking your brain out, right? Now, contemplation, this could be where some of you are. Instead of feeling like you can't, you feel like, well, maybe you could do this. You're ready to stop feeling stuck. However, you're a little confused about like the solution and exactly what the root cause problem is. What's great about contemplation is you're probably ready for change in the next 6 months. You might even know what you need to do, but your brain's not there yet, which is why action plans, making changes, feels super overwhelming. You find yourself saying, well, someday I'll do this and someday I'll do that. And I want you to not beat yourself up if you are in a stage of contemplation. You might be afraid of failure, and that's okay. When you're in contemplation, you are actually not ready to start. You need to allow your brain to sit there for a little while, even a couple months, because you still need to move through this at the next stage, which is called preparation, okay? Now, the end of the contemplative stage is starting to feel a little bit exciting, maybe a little bit anxious. You've got to give yourself grace, okay? If you feel like you are in contemplation today, make some lists, take notes, but don't try to act tomorrow. Save them for later. Like you might still need to do some more reading and allow your brain to get a chance to kind of come around to this idea. Does that make sense? So if you're in contemplation, look at today's class like you're just kind of auditing a class at college that you didn't pay for and you don't really need yet, but you're going to take notes because you like learning. Now, preparation is definitely a good stage to be in today because now you're making final adjustments. You're basically ready to take action, like within the next month. Your brain is getting ready. You're probably starting to talk to other people about what you're going to do, but in the back of your brain, you're giving yourself a lot of buts. But I don't know. But maybe not, right? You might not believe yourself. This is a great time to start with something small, which is great that you're here today. And you still may need a little convincing, so that's okay. Don't you dare try to do everything we talk about today in your first month, okay? Preparation stage people. I'm going to share a lot of information, and it's all about starting small, making your own list, right? The goal for today is to make your own list and move at your own pace because you have to give your brain a chance to be ready, a chance to be in the right stage before these changes will stick. This is cool, right? Oh, I'm such a science geek. I love this. Now, action is just as it sounds. If you figured out your stage, by the way, I'd love to kind of hear it in the chat. Action, now these people are like, okay, I'm doing it. This is where, behavior is modified. That means you are making changes. It's obviously the hardest because you're doing things. Takes the most time, the most energy, the most effort, but it's also the most rewarding because you start to see the progress that your changes are making. Okay, so if you're in an action stage, obviously you're in a great place today because you can start taking action even tomorrow or next week. And once you've been taking action for a really long time, now for healthy living, I don't know. I mean, it's like, it's a journey, right? So on some pieces of healthy living, you'll probably get to maintenance, and you can probably look at some pieces of healthy living, like maybe having a good breakfast or choosing nuts for a snack instead of a candy bar, or you've ditched soda already. Like my husband ditched soda about almost 10 years ago now. He's not even in maintenance. He's in the next stage technically, but like maintenance is very important. That means you have made a change. It's becoming part of your life, but it's tricky because you have to kind of consolidate everything in order to make it stick. So maintenance is that like really tenuous place where you could easily backslide out of your habit. So this might take 6 months. This might take a lifetime. And I have to tell you, when we're talking about healthy living, you can't make healthy living the box on its own. It's like each little change you make is probably going to have kind of its own stage to a certain extent. It's important that you have support at this stage and that you stay committed because you might slide back into those other stages. Now, I mentioned my husband with his soda habit that he used to drink at least one a day, maybe more. He is in the termination phase just with soda. Like he's not perfect at all healthy living, but he's here with soda, and I'm here with some things too. This is the ultimate goal because whatever your like bad habit used to be, it will never tempt you again. Okay. Or whatever your good habit is, you'll like never fall out of it again. There are a couple habits, the habits we're talking about today, that's where I am. I'm in termination. That's why I feel like I can tell you this is possible, right? Now, for some habits like quitting smoking, for some habits, probably like quitting sugar altogether, for some of us people, termination is never possible. You'll always be in sort of a maintenance. You'll always be striving and working because in termination, it's no effort whatsoever. Like you're guaranteed to stay in that stage forever. Now, the researchers found that only 5% of people who start out at the contemplative stage, like thinking about the changes, make it all the way through to termination without at least one setback. Okay, so ladies and gents, we gotta give ourselves grace, right? It's just totally natural, it's totally normal, and I want you to expect yourself to have some setbacks, okay? But something that you can do tonight as you talk with your significant other or your best friend is to think about like, okay, when I do have that setback, what's my plan? How does my brain work? What encouragement do I need to then take another step forward? Okay, and I see a couple people kind of starting to choose their phase, and some questions that we'll answer a little bit further in the presentation. So, if you know where your phase is, I think that's great. What you can do tonight is figure out your stage of change and maybe whatever is your practical next step. Again, if you're still in contemplative, your practical next step is probably just to read and to talk to other people who are living lifestyles that you admire. I want to remind you, I heard from a number of people. I heard from Lisa and Michelle about like the extended family strife, right? My extended family doesn't support our healthy eating. I heard from Charity and a couple others about having trouble getting a spouse on board. And Betsy about other people bringing sugar into her house. Like these are super common concerns, you guys. And what I want to tell you is that remember that these other people in your life, their brain has to go through all these stages too. You can't like shoot them into action, into believing you until their brain has understood the importance, right? And had time to think about it and all that stuff. So just keep in mind that people around you need to go through all these stages too. And that may help you know how to talk to your extended family or how to talk to your spouse if you can figure out what stage they're at. Now, we know that our brains can get super overwhelmed, right? And especially, and this research showed, if you try to do everything at once, it just isn't going to work. So what we're not going to do, what some other bloggers will tell you to do, is clean out your whole pantry, get rid of everything processed. Oh my gosh, that stresses me out so much. We're not going to clean out our whole pantry or a whole fridge. We're going to talk about learning to read ingredients. We're going to talk about changing your buying habits slowly. Like if I'm about to make a change, I generally eat up. I allow my family to eat everything I have in on hand that I don't want to eat anymore, because I don't like food waste either. And then I just stop buying it. Much easier to stop buying than to like throw things away or figure out who to give it to, or like, I don't know, that just, you guys have enough going on. You don't need this huge organizational task that will like suck all your energy before you start. I know we got Michelle and Kristen have 3 teenagers each, they shared with me. Laura has a very stubborn, selective eater. Like, you guys need to just take it slowly and allow those kids to sort of eat down the stores, and then they'll go, oh, where is that thing? And you're like, oh, I just didn't buy anymore. That's way easier than the power struggle of like, oh, I threw out all your food, right? So yeah, if that overwhelms you, that is not what we are here for. We are not going to talk about elimination diets and cutting out we're going to focus on what you want your family to eat first, okay? And I also am not going to talk about really expensive superfoods and fancy ingredients and meal prep like kits that you can buy, blah, blah, blah. No, no, no. Kitchen Stewardship's all about sticking to a budget. We want to save money on our homemade food. And maybe then you do have a little extra money to spend on high quality meats if that's what you want. But that's not, exactly what we're talking about today. So no fancy superfoods. I really believe that baby steps work. Because even though, I mean, my family's not the picture of perfect health, that's the idea. Is like, we can't be perfect, but we know that brain science tells us that if we can do one step at a time, we're going to be way ahead of the game and all smiling. Okay, so here are the first 5 top changes in the kitchen that I would recommend to tackle in any order at whatever pace works for your brain and your personality. First of all, I like to start out with one simple rule, right? That we eat food that's grown in the ground or food that eats things that are grown in the ground, okay? And always we're thinking about our budget, we're thinking about our time, but within that, my big rule is these whole foods, right? So my very first big change, I think I told you already, was just margarine to butter. And that's really a little change, but it was like a milestone, because it was a marker of me beginning to understand that I needed to be more thoughtful and intentional about what I bought in the store. And I remember a good friend of mine, a guy friend from high school, came over and he's like, well, I want to get healthy too. Where should I start? And I said, well, why don't you start where I started? Like, just ditch the margarine in the tub that you grew up on and buy butter. He's like, okay, I'll buy butter. And he texts me from the store. He goes, Katie, I'm trying to buy butter. And he like texted a picture of like the dairy cabinet, because it's so confusing now. There's like everything seems like maybe it's butter, and it's really hard to figure. It was so hard for him to figure out. He goes, I thought you said this would be easy. I'm like, Joe, just look for the one that says butter, like just butter. Salted or unsalted? He texts again. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's okay. So again, even young guys can get overwhelmed by these changes. But the first one big change that I would recommend for you is if you're using fake fats or industrial fats, so in other words, margarine, corn oil, canola oil, anything that wasn't on the ingredients lists 100 to 200 years ago, we don't want to be guinea pigs, okay? A lot of research shows that those oils are inflammatory in our system, and inflammation is the root cause of a lot of those diseases that we've already talked about. So real fats include coconut oil, olive oil, butter, right? Avocado oil's in there now. And I say now, like, maybe that's kind of new, but avocados are a whole food. You can get the fat out. So we want to focus on healthy fats, whole foods that aren't inflammatory. Now, change number 2, and this again was one that I didn't have to make because my mom always made bone broth. I feel so fortunate. But bone broth is just so powerful for so many reasons that I think it's a fabulous step to put on your first list. Anytime I buy a whole chicken now, I get at least 3 gallons of broth. Okay. Now, you can buy bone broth now. But I've been telling people to make bone broth for 11 years. It was not purchasable back then. It was not so hot. Now it's hot. You could buy this container of bone broth. It's about $6 for 2 cups though. $6 for 2 cups. Did anyone's head just explode? My 3 gallons of broth would cost about, there's 16 cups in a gallon. It would cost almost $150 if I wanted to buy the same quality with pastured bones. Oh, and I make it out of garbage. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through every step, but I will email you every step of how to make bone broth. It's basically celery ends, onion skins, carrot ends, and garlic skins thrown in a pot with your bones, all garbage, stuff you'd throw away, and you boil it for 4 to 24 hours. Poof. That's it. If you only add broth to your diet and change nothing else, even if you don't change the Dr. Pepper yet, Betsy, it's going to make a huge impact. Okay, check this out. Bone broth really does improve your immune system. It has collagen, which is helpful and supportive for your hair, your skin, your nails, and your joints. If you've got achy joints, more bone broth. Plus, if you have a lot of bone broth around, when I have a gallon in my fridge, guess what I'm going to make for dinner? Because it's easy. Soup. And a big old pot of soup is usually full of vegetables. You can get, meat sparingly, which is a budget friendly. You can use beans, which are budget friendly. And a huge pot of soup is so easy to reheat for quick meals. So Diane wrote me that her commute starts at 5:45 in the morning and she doesn't get home for 13 to 14 hours. She's like, I need quick breakfast and quick dinners. Oh yeah. So if Diane's bone broth is just finishing up in her slow cooker or her Instant Pot when she gets home, it's hot. She could transfer that quickly to another pot, like it's already heated. Throw in some pre-cut vegetables and soup will be done in 10 to 15 minutes, fresh, okay? Or reheated. How cool is that? I literally made bone broth in labor with baby number 3, my little John. Literally made bone broth in labor. That is how easy it is. So if you have not made bone broth before, I challenge you to add that to your list. Betsy says, what about using a rotisserie chicken? Oh yeah, heck yeah, A-okay. A-okay, eat most of the meat, and you'll get, what's cool too, is after you've like kind of picked the meat off, when you boil those bones for 4 to 24 hours, you'll usually get another cup or 2 of meat. And 2 cups of meat is a batch of soup, you guys. That's awesome. Rotisserie is perfect. If you don't like raw chicken, that doesn't have to be part of your step. Somebody F says, is it just as good as homemade? And I don't know if you're asking about the kettle and fire, but I mean, this is good and it's super healthy for you. It's made exactly like I'd make it at home, but whoo-wee, is it expensive. Number 3 for me is yogurt. All right, you guys, the yogurt section in the stores has become as confusing and confounding as the butter section was for my friend Joe. Yogurt is hot stuff because probiotics became, and very in vogue. I was making homemade yogurt way before it was cool. And I figure I save between $500 to $1,000 every year on my food budget because I make homemade yogurt instead of buying it. And that just depends on the prices of milk and if I'm doing organic or not. The benefits of homemade yogurt are, of course, there's probiotics in them. The probiotics in homemade yogurt are not as powerful as a supplement, but it's still helpful because the milk is cultured. Some of the lactose, the milk sugars, which are the least healthy part of milk, are consumed by the healthy bacteria and not by you. So it's lower lactose. Good milk has healthy fats, whole milk. And for us, honestly, having yogurt around is just a super easy option for lunch every day. My kids go to pack their own lunches and they know that they have yogurt, and that reduces that whole like blank slate, like, well, I don't know what to have in lunch. At least they have that yogurt every day. It again is so easy to make. My family and I traveled for 6 weeks this summer. We stayed with friends in hotels and Airbnbs, and I kept homemade yogurt going even on the road. I felt like the yogurt fairy because I would like share my special starter with the friends that we visited. So it was pretty fun. Number 4 for me is to try cooking with dry beans. And this is where your budget really comes in, you guys. If you can use beans to replace some meat in your weekly meal plan, you're going to save so much money. And dry beans are about half the cost of canned, plus better for the environment because you're not shipping around those huge cans of beans and then recycling or throwing away the cans, right? Now, pressure cooking beans is the healthiest way to do it. And I have some instructions on Kitchen Storage about how to pressure cook. If you've got an Instant Pot, you know how easy it is. I know beans are getting a little bit more hot right now because the plant-based diet and eating is really in. and then there's the paleo diet, and they would say, oh my gosh, no beans are too high in carb. I had a friend who 10 years ago was like having serious hormonal like cycle issues, and this nutritionist put her on a diet of half a cup, I think, of beans at every single meal. Every single meal. It actually did kind of fix her, but it turned out she was just stressed. So are beans perfect for everyone? No. But if your body tolerates beans, they're awesome for the budget. And again, when you have like a huge batch of beans, instead of having to open a million cans, you're going to make like big batches of burritos, big batches of soup. And when you have big batches, you have leftovers. And that's great for your budget, and it's great for your health because leftovers are quick, y'all, right? The health benefits of beans include lots of fiber and lots of minerals. And then, each bean kind of has some different star features. Number 5, we're going to talk about trade ups to increase nutrient density. I like to call them trade ups because they're like teeny tiny changes. Okay. So if any of that felt overwhelming and you're like, Katie, dude, no, I can't make homemade broth. Oh my gosh, I can't make homemade yogurt. You're overwhelming me. Stop it. I'm going to stop it right now. Okay. These are tiny, tiny changes like the butter for margarine shift. Just think about one day a week trading eggs for cereal. Okay. Taking your white rice and trading that up to brown rice, or better yet, black rice, which is a little more expensive, but it's lower in carb and super high in antioxidants. It looks a little freaky though. Another trade up might be trading out your pasta for rice, because rice is less processed. It's the whole grain, you might trade up some greener greens. If you're used to buying bagged iceberg lettuce, trade up a little bit, because the greener the green, the more nutrients it has. You could trade up some like favorite crunchy snacks that are probably not the most nutrient dense things for some nuts, right? And don't eat as many nuts as you would potato chips. You're going to get too full. Okay, because what we're thinking about here is nutrient density. When we're going to eat something, how can we take that same something and increase the nutrient density with just a little trade up? So I like this because it's, instead of saying like, oh, I can't eat that, or like, oh, we don't eat that anymore, just look for a way to substitute here and there until it does become the new normal without feeling like you have to cut something out. And I see a great question. Can we get the yogurt recipe in our mailbox too? And yes, actually, let me skip this slide and come back. Tomorrow in your email, you'll get a one-click invite to my Monday Mission series. So what I did is I took my top 10 favorite healthy changes that I think make the most impact on your budget, your health, and the environment without taking too much time, and put those in weekly emails. I know I teased you when you guys signed up. I promise I won't send daily emails, and I won't. But if you think it would be helpful to get like meal planning next week, and then bone broth the following week, and then yogurt, so that it's a little slower, you'll get an invite to those tomorrow. And you can either, delete that email, or you can click, yeah, I'm in, and then they'll start next week. I wanted to throw in a quick bonus in here, because I know like Julia wrote to me that she worries her kids don't eat vegetables at lunch. And I just wanted to say that thinking about getting more vegetables in is another excellent baby step. Sonia's got a link to a post that I just wrote a week or two ago on 10 really surprising ways to prepare vegetables to help kids eat them. And really none of them have to do with lunch. And here's why. I think that lunch is so much more out of our control, especially when our kids are eating school lunch. This doesn't apply as much to homeschool moms. And so I would love to just tell you, Julia, like, don't worry so much about lunch. Maybe don't even pack them, or just pack like a bite, and just so that they're used to seeing vegetables there, and don't freak out if that bite comes home every single day, because you can focus on vegetables at breakfast and dinner and snacks too. Like when the kids are in the house, that's when you want to focus on the vegetables. And then, yeah, there's Sonia just dropped that link. So if this would be helpful once a week, I'll send you all those instructions, but at least now you have a little bit of an overview of like why you might want to try some of these little healthy changes. And so what you can do, well, not tonight, tomorrow, if you want to sign up for the Monday missions, and I'll help. And I would say if you want to do one, it's out of order. Sorry. Okay. If you want to do one thing like tonight, start a stock bag in the freezer. In other words, when you cut an onion, a celery, or carrots, take the part you'd usually throw away, put it in a zipper bag, and throw it in your freezer, and just write chicken stock on it. Okay. And that's like easy. You're not committing yet. your brain is just still sort of preparing, and that's so good for your brain. And then eventually you'll buy a whole chicken, a rotisserie chicken, a raw chicken, whatever, and you'll have those instructions and you'll be like, oh, sweet, I've got my stock bag already. And it's like this like blast of momentum to keep you going. All right. Now, I don't love talking about cutting things out, but I do think that especially for some people, this can be really, really helpful. So if this is helpful for you, here's the top 5 items that I would put on my X list first. Again, I'm not going to ask you to cut all these things out, but let's just get this information, right? Let's get our brain contemplating, what would it be like for my family to cut these out? We can be in that contemplative stage for a long time, and that's okay. My personal X list includes artificial sweeteners, and I don't know how I knew this as a young mom, but even before we were healthy, I never let my kids touch them. MSG is a more recent addition. Plastics is something that I continue to work on cutting down. Toxic cleaners were easy to go, and then we'll talk a little bit about choosing your own. All right, now for your brain's sake, why artificial sweeteners hurt us? Okay, now there's multiple artificial sweeteners, so this applies to some and not the others, but some of them actually cause gut dysbiosis. They interfere with the microbial activity in our gut, and they tend to like feed the bad bugs or kill off the good bugs. That's not great. They can really impact your blood sugar because when your mouth tastes the sweet, it tells your brain calories coming, right? Carbs coming. And your brain tells your body to release some insulin to get ready. And then the artificial sweetener gets down into your gut and there's no calories and there's no carbs. And your body's like, but I already released the insulin. So it causes problems with your insulin, and also your gut's going to send a message back to your brain and say, hey, where did those carbs go? I was expecting them. And your brain makes you crave more carbs. So this is going to severely increase and impact our insulin resistance and our weight and our cravings. In the brain, some of those artificial sweeteners actually behave like excitotoxins, which I'm going to explain in just a minute when we talk about MSG. The reason I never let my kids touch them is because we don't know what 30, 40, or 50 years of artificial sweeteners will do to our kids. Okay. And before, this is like 50 years ago, before the FDA approved aspartame, which is NutraSweet, Dr. John W. Olney said, we can be reasonably certain there is no margin of safety for the use of aspartame in a child's diet. That's all I need. My kids do not need artificial sweeteners. If you want to cut artificial sweeteners, here are all the words you need to watch out for. NutraSweet, aspartame, sucralose, which is Splenda, acesulfame K, acesulfame potassium, that's what the K stands for. Saccharin is the oldest one, that's an infant formula. Awesome, not. And all the alls, sorbitol, maltitol, erythritol, those are sugar alcohols. And then there are probably others that are like in development right now that don't even exist yet. So let's do a little bit of practice here. This is your training. If you're in the store, you're going to watch for words like light and less sugar, sugar-free, diet foods. So you see 0 sugar lemonade. You're like, great, I'm trying to cut sugar. No, there's aspartame and acesulfame potassium, 2 different ones there. Oh, no sugar ice cream. Doesn't that sound healthy? No, a sugar alcohol that could give your kids diarrhea, and 2 others. Splenda is the one that really impacts the gut microbes, by the way. And then, sugar-free candy. Isn't that what they hand out at the dentist? Sometimes. Maltitol. Give you the poops. You really want to watch for artificial sweeteners. In almost all gum has them. That's probably the least important place, because at least you're not swallowing the gum. It is in a lot of drinks, even along with real sugar and corn syrup, which is so weird. Artificials are in a lot of yogurts and creamers, puddings, jellos, anything that says light or diet, you're probably going to find an artificial sweetener in there. So in our family, they are on the X list. My kids absolutely cannot have them, even though we let them have sugar, we let them have junk food, but not that. And the other one that we added, so again, artificials were out for 15 years. About 4 or 5 years ago, we added MSG, because the more I read about it, the more it bothered me that I was letting my kids eat it. And MSG is a neurotoxin, and that's an excitotoxin, and that's where it's basically filling the like when your brain, your synapses fire, and one neuron, heads over and gets received by another place. Well, chemicals that we consume can fill in that receptor. And that's what MSG does. It fills in some of your receptors and it excites your brain. And so some kids really act hyper if they already have a learning disability. It can make it worse. Sometimes MSG makes people's heart race, and it also can interfere in general with the processes in your brain and cause people numbness in their extremities, headaches. Ugh, no good. The whole point of MSG is to make our food taste better, so it does tend to make you eat more, which is not what any of us want. It's very tricky to find because it hides under all these names. Ugh. Anything on the ingredients that has glutamate in it, or anything hydrolyzed, or the word yeast not by itself, those are the big three that I sort of look for, and I know how to scan the ingredients. And I see Sonia has dropped a link in the chat for a post where you can get this whole list. You don't have to write it down right now, but let's do some practice. Where are we going to find it? My kids know that they can always have like the normal chips, even though that's junk food, but they can almost never have the highly seasoned chips, except from Aldi, because Aldi doesn't allow MSG in their products, which is awesome. So cheddar and sour cream Pringles, MSG, monosodium glutamate. Normal Cheez-Its don't have MSG. Pepper Jack, or like any of, again, when they're trying to like boost the flavor, they're going to throw MSG in. It's so, so frustrating. And a ton of ranch dressings and ranch dip will have MSG. So that gets tricky when you're out, because my kids love salad. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if you can have the ranch. Stinks. It totally stinks. All right, number 3 on my X list is plastics. And this is one that's a continual striving to just cut it down in our house. You guys have seen on Facebook, right? You've seen the junk in the ocean. Statistically, we're adding 19 billion pounds of plastics into the ocean directly each year. Okay, and that's expected to increase dramatically. I gotta say, I did a talk a couple years ago in front of some kids, and I threw away a plastic bottle, and I said, "How many of these do you think we Americans throw away?" And I said, 2.5 million. Do you think that's per minute, per hour, per day, or per year? 2.5 million. And I ask you the same thing. This is nuts. Americans throw away 2.5 million plastic bottles per hour. Oh, that's crazy. I can't. We were in a wrestling meet that last week, and my family all brought our metal water bottles, and I just saw the trashes were just overflowing with Gatorade bottles and plastic water bottles, and it like hurts my little heart. So I want to show you. Look at metal water bottles. Both of these are as old as my oldest son, and he's 14. So although you might look at a metal water bottle and go, I can't spend $30 on a water bottle, Katie. Oh, yes, you can, because they are still alive and kicking 15 years later. This old plastic piece holding the lid on, literally broke yesterday. I was like, oh, I was going to use that in my presentation, but they still work. And so that is a very small investment. And you guys, you get pretty used to, as soon as you have kids, you have sippy cups all the time, right? So all that is like you just keep bringing the water with you. So we really strive as a family not to use any single-use plastic water bottles. It's very, very rare for us to do that. Plastics cause a lot of problems. We know plastic toys often have phthalates in them, and those are endocrine disruptors. They can be linked to weight gain and insulin resistance. Studies have found BPA in 93% of urine samples from humans over age 6. Okay, and it's actually in cord blood too. BPA is a known plastic problem. There are a ton of unknown plastic problems. So for me, I just try to avoid plastic as much as possible. And we know that our children are affected more than us. Okay, so let's do a little bit of, Katie's not going to stand here. I promised you I would not overwhelm. So I'm not going to say, cut plastics out of your life. No, let's learn how to cut them down and cut down the ones that hurt us the most. Okay, because there's all these plastic numbers, right? We can't just ditch them all, but let me teach you which numbers are more toxic. Okay, so we want to completely try to avoid plastic numbers 3, 6, and 7. Okay, and I say it's better maybe to have 2, 4, and 5, and maybe because we don't know what we don't know, Most plastic food storage containers are number 5. So they're at least on the better probably list. Plastic water bottles are generally number 1. Questionable, but still better, probably better than 3, 6, and 7. So I'm a teacher. So here are some here are some quick ways. So first, when you're drinking, try really hard just to drink out of glasses and stainless steel bottles, or glass bottles too. If you store your leftovers in plastic, take the baby step of never reheating your leftovers in plastic, because heat causes those chemicals to leach into your food at a much faster rate. Okay, so if you must store your leftovers in plastic, dear God, stop microwaving it. Okay, simple baby step. Now, the safer plastics are going to be 2, 4, and 5 on those little numbers. So your mnemonics can be rhyming like a cheerleader. 245, staying alive, right? 245, staying alive. Or if you're a word person, they always have those little letters underneath. Think hoopy, doopy, and pee-pee. You see that? The H is 2. Hoopy, loopy, and pee-pee are the ones that are safer. If you're visual, grab your phone, pull up your keypad, and you'll see that 245 is a triangle. So just imagine 245 being a triangle of good health for you. Okay. Now, obviously, best case scenario is cut out plastics as much and as many places as you can. But even if you just choose one place in your life where you regularly use plastics, or you regularly heat plastics, and just cut that out, just the one, right? Just the one. That's awesome. So quick swaps. The plastic bottle, right, to the metal bottle. Go for stainless steel, you guys, not aluminum, because aluminum has risks of its own. Swap your plastic leftovers containers with glass containers. It is so easy, easier every day to find glass. You don't have to have special knowledge. You don't have to remember numbers, just store in glass. And hey, cheap tip, save your spaghetti sauce jars, you guys, okay? My nuts and dried fruit all come out of their big bulk bags and go into spaghetti sauce jars. Easy. Our soup goes into often quart jars, but if I don't have quart jars, spaghetti sauce jars. It costs nothing to reuse. How great is that? Okay, you do not have to spend that much. Now, if you do have some money to spend, lunch containers are a really good place to start, because your kids might be using these every day. It is an investment, but again, so I used to write like this at Kitchen Stewardship. Okay, these should last a really long time, so it should be a good investment. Well, now I can tell you that these exact container in my hand has been around for 10 years, packed in lunches every week, and they're doing awesome. So you know as well as I do that those plastic ones break at least every year, every other year. These metal ones last a long time. So if you have the money to invest, you will end up saving money in the long run. This is our favorite yogurt container. Remember, I said my kids pack yogurt every single day, and I gotta say, they're pricey. I think they're $18, but we bought 2 when my son started kindergarten 10 years ago. We're still using those. We have had to buy more because we use them every day for 4 kids. But I've learned, my little Gabe is in kindergarten, and the first day I gave him yogurt in a container that didn't have these clips. Guess what happened with the 2 bites that were left over because he didn't get the lid back on well? Everywhere in the lunch, right? These clips are worth their weight in gold. So totally our favorite container. I totally love those. Let me get back to my pictures. So for me, that's not overwhelming. I just think it makes lunch packing easier as well. All right, the 4th X list is toxic cleaning supplies. I remember taking my oldest, Paul, around our house. He was probably 12 months, 18 months. And do you guys remember those Mr. Yuck stickers? They're from Poison Control, and they have the green face, making a yucky mouth on it. And you put them on all your toxic cleaners so your kids don't drink them, right? Because toxic cleaners look like juice, because why do we need food coloring in our cleaners? I don't know. So I can picture myself taking little 12-month-old Paul around, and I would take a sticker and I'd put it on a bottle under my kitchen sink and under my bathroom sink, and I'd go, ooh, ooh, owie, owie, yuck, yuck, sick baby, no drink, no, 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 every single time. And I look back and I'm like, okay, first of all, very cute. Good mom. Way to go, Katie. Okay. But why would I want stuff at arm's reach of my child that he can't touch and that I know that the fumes themselves are harmful to him? We pretty quickly got rid of all those yuck, yuck, owie, owie, sick baby, no, no, toxic cleaners and swapped them out for very, very simple things. Okay. Under every sink in my house, you will find an old Parmesan cheese container like this, or like a big old spice container full of baking soda. That's for scouring our sinks, our tubs, and tough spots on our counters. You'll find vinegar water, which is a really mild antiseptic cleaner. And more, I'm using half and half hydrogen peroxide and water. That makes it so that you don't bleach out all your favorite shirts if you accidentally lean on what you're cleaning, because I did that once when it was full hydrogen peroxide. Oh no, I did that once when I still used bleach. I like wrecked a brand new shirt. Anyway, that was the end of bleach in my house. But it's easy. You can even buy now, I love this, hydrogen peroxide with a spray top already on it. So that's super cool. All the material, all the metal I have is stainless steel, Betsy, by the way, to answer that question. And then the last thing I said is just, I thought, I don't want to give people one more X thing because they probably have something on the X list their own. I know for sugar is on your X list. And I would say that's great. Like, I'm not talking about sugar because it's so controversial and it seems so big. But there are some really good ideas in an article that a nutritionist friend of mine wrote on kitchen stewardship just this week. Another just like simple swap that I started making was getting rid of Kleenex and napkins. So we used cloth napkins and hankies, and it was slow and it was cheap. All of our hankies are cut up receiving blankets, free. And it was just, I didn't stop buying tissue all of a sudden. I just started using hankies, and then it sort of shifted more and more hankies and less tissue. And now I don't buy Kleenex anymore. It was easy for us. So tonight, again, we don't want to do big things. I just want to encourage you to read your labels. Okay, just go in your pantry and fridge and just read your labels. See if you have any artificial sweeteners. See if you happen to have any MSG or any ingredients that you don't want in your house anymore. And just, think about it. Don't even make a commitment today. Just be contemplative. Let yourself stay in that contemplative / preparation stage. Just read the labels. And if you're feeling like I'd love to cut down plastics, just find one sustainable item and just add it to your cart. Don't even buy it yet, right? Let your brain just think about it for a while so that you can move through those stages of change. We want to be really gentle and really kind to our brain. Okay. Oh, I'm almost going to be on time here, you guys. This is like a miracle for me. I wanted to end with some heavy encouragement, a huge dose of encouragement, because I know that you are doing some incredible things for your family's health and you don't even realize how healthy they are. Okay, so I want to build you up here. These are simple habits that are completely free. First of all, just getting outside. Anytime you can get outside, anytime your bare feet can touch the ground, anytime you get sunshine, this is a healthy step for your family. And I want you to appreciate that the next time you do it. I want you to applaud for yourself inside your head that you made a good, healthy choice. Okay, consistent bedtimes. I stink at this, so I don't teach too much about sleep, but it's free. It's free to implement. And it's really, especially for your kids, I would highly encourage consistent bedtimes. Okay, I'm not going to tell you to sleep 8 hours, but even if you can just have that consistent bedtime, that's going to be a really huge help for your health. We see studies more and more about the blue zones and how one of the threads throughout all the blue zones is not nutritional. It's social. And the blue zones, by the way, are where people tend to live to 100 and above at rates much higher than the rest of the world. There's only like 7 of them. And they connect. They have community. They spend time with people. So ladies, the next time you have a mom's night out, go. Don't feel guilty. Feel like you're eating kale. You're doing something healthy for yourself and healthy for your family. And the next time your, husband wants to go to somebody's man cave, say, yeah, you need that. We need that connection with friends and not through screens. We need it face to face. Anytime that you're taking care of your stress. So if you're a person of faith, Prayer is healthy for your body as it is for your soul. If you're not a person of faith, or if you are, meditation and breathing, just slowing down your breath at various points throughout the day. I'm a trained stress mastery educator, and this is what I teach people, the importance of just controlling and using your breath as a very powerful way for good. And again, can't teach that today, but I do teach that in other presentations. But just, appreciate the fact that that's good for your bodies. We know that eating dinner together is one of the most protective factors for children's mental health. We also know that eating dinner together creates those habits. A lot of you guys talked in the chat, like, I want my kids to know what being healthy looks like. Well, that's why you eat together, okay? Because you're going to eat healthier meals and you're going to connect and communicate. If you can teach your kids to eat mindfully and think about how their food fuels their body or maybe hurts their body, you're going to start building those habits in really powerful ways. And I think Sonia has a link for you about some tips to really supercharge family dinners. All right, no overwhelm. That was a lot, but I'm not going to send you one email a day. I will send you an email a week if you want. And I want you to be making checklists that fit your personality. Okay. You don't have to do this all at once. I think you should make your own checklist. If you would like me to send you one small change that you can do a week, just for 10 weeks, I would be more than happy to do that. Watch your email tomorrow. Okay. In the emails I got from you guys before you arrived, almost half of you said that you felt like you had made healthy changes, but had slid backward in some area of your life. And I could feel your guilt. Almost another half had worries about your families liking the food you make, about being exhausted trying too hard, and complaining from your family. And I feel the pain in that. And I just want to reassure you that this is hard work. Like, parenting is hard work. Healthy bodies are hard work. Okay. But we've got to remember that no matter what, we have got to give ourselves grace. Okay. Because perfection, for those of us who may be perfectionists like me, we cannot achieve perfection in healthy living. It's literally never going to happen, which is great news because we can stop striving for it. It's great news that we will never reach perfection because anything you do is a good step. It's a great thing. It's a step in the right direction. And taking a step backward just means you have another opportunity to make another step in the right direction, another step forward, right? You guys think about it. We did our family chores today between church and this presentation. And if I thought that every time I cleaned my house, it would stay that way, I'm gonna be disappointed, right? If I thought I could check sweep kitchen off my list and never have to put it back on, well, that ain't gonna work, isn't it? And similarly, you're never going to be able to check, make a new healthy change or achieve healthy living off your list for the last time. This is a journey that we're on. I'm honored to be on it with you, but our goal has got to be only forward motion, okay? Not perfection. The goal has got to be forward motion, not perfection. And that's why here at Kitchen Stewardship, we are all about empowering you to give yourself grace and to just take those baby steps, which is what works for your brain best anyway. Now I'll stay as long as you guys need for the Q&A. I see we still got people here, which is fabulous. I love it. Thank you again for being here. And then I know Sonia has pulled aside some questions. Let me see if there's anybody who used the Q&A. No, that's okay. No worries. I've got all the questions that you guys asked. I'm going to start with any that came in during the webinar because I want to really make sure that we get the people who asked now. Okay, so live questions, here we go. Oh, this is a good one. So does nutritional yeast have MSG? Not as far as I know. I did say anything yeast with 2 words, but I do believe that's an exception. Nutritional yeast isn't something I use a lot, but I'm not afraid to put it in something. We've got our daughter who's dairy sensitive, and so we're just starting to figure out some cheese substitutes, and that usually calls for nutritional yeast. So I'm not afraid of that one, no. When connecting with others, can it be family and not friends to still get benefits? Oh, whoever asked that, that's such a good question. Yes, it's the idea and the research is behind just human connection, face to face. So absolutely, it can be family. It's good. It's good for us to have people outside our home, outside our immediate family. But heck yeah, like I value that one-on-one time too with my husband and with my kids. Absolutely. It's good to have both. It's good to have community support outside your home as well. Still good to get together because I mean, we kind of have to be intentional sometimes, even about connecting face to face with the people who live in our house, don't we? Because we get so busy. We're driving in a car or we're rushing back and forth, or sometimes the only time we talk to our kids is to tell them something they shouldn't do or something they need to do, right? So we do have to be intentional. Any human connection is really, really good. Great questions, you guys. And I know I saw Betsy was like, how do I kick Dr. Pepper? And there's lots of strategies for cutting down on sugar. And I'm going to wrap this question up with a couple other people because I wanted to pop up. I know I saw a number of people struggling with the sugar and the sweets, and me too. I totally have a sweet tooth. Leah says that it's hard to stick to healthy eating because, like, I love brownies, I love Oreos, I love cookie dough. It tastes good, and that's totally, totally true. Who else talked about sugar? There were a few. Julia said she admits she's addicted to sugar, and her kids are too, and she knows that she stress eats. So that's huge. That's a huge problem. And another person talks about emotional eating and sweets. Pat, congratulations, is on a 40-day sugar fast, but is already, I think, sort of worrying about it becoming the life. She wants it to be her lifestyle. But I think she's a little worried that the 40-day fast will end and sugar will come back. So first of all, remember the stages of change, only 5% of people stay in termination without backsliding. So you got to think of, if you have a goal to give up sugar or to cut, even if it's just start with Dr. Pepper, Betsy, and you're not even thinking all sugar, there's a 95% chance that once you get it right, you will slide back. So let's just embrace that right now. You will slide back, so the most important step you can take is to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to fail. And when I fail, I'm going to do it again. And tell yourself now that you'll make that choice. If I was trying to kick a habit, for me, it's got to be cut completely out. And for my husband, it was as well. He knew that if he tried to do like 1 a week or 2 a week, that he would very quickly let that slide into, well, I had my one, but if one doesn't hurt, two probably doesn't hurt. Like you like negotiate in your own brain. So yeah, see, Betsy says, I've quit before and here we are again. So good news, you're normal, Betsy. Your brain works like 95% of other people in the world. And so it's just a matter of like continuing to make that call. Again, my husband had to cut it out completely. And what he did to kick pop is he'd give up pop for Lent. So that's like I think it's 6 or 7 weeks total, no pop. But then every Easter, he'd be like, yay, pop. And one year, probably about 8-10 years ago, he thought, I don't know. I don't think I want to go back. I'm curious how long I can go. And then he went to 6 months. And once he was at 6 months, he was like, well, if I go back now, well, that's going to feel pretty crappy. And then once he hit a year, he's like, well, I can just never, like, I'm just never going to even have one because I know that I'll go back. So that for him, it had to be fully out. Some people like to wean down. I think one thing, and that's kind of based in brain science too, is that our palates, our tongues, our taste buds get used to what we eat. So the more sweet we eat, the more sweet feels good in our bodies and tastes good on our tongues. The less sweet we eat, the less sweet feels good and tastes good. So if you can start to cut down on sweet things in other areas of your life, and then if you did like Pat's doing a 40-day sugar fast, I think that's super cool. At the end, foods that Pat used to love are probably going to taste too sweet. If she goes back to it and keeps eating those, her mouth will get used to them again. But when you first go back, they taste too sweet. And that's when you got to go, okay, I get it. This is too sweet and I don't want to eat it anymore. And then you can keep your palate trained in that beautiful, like less sugar place. And it takes time and you do backslide. My husband and I are both there now, where if we eat like really like a rich chocolate cake or, especially like drinking I mean, we're not going to drink a pop, but we will drink like the fancy drinks, alcoholic drinks. And I have to tell bartenders, like, would you cut the sugar in half? Or like, would you take the sugar out? Or I'll have them serve the simple syrup like on the side, and I'll just do like a teeny splash because they're too sweet for us. And I think that's great. That's what you want. You want like, you want your tongue to say that's too sweet. So Betsy, I'm cheering you on. I know you can do it. And then when you fail, I know you can do it again. And then when you fail, I know you can do it again. And I don't even want to say fail, but when you backslide, and you'll get there. You'll get there. You'll look back in a year or two and go, oh, maybe I'm in maintenance. I'm good. I'm getting there. I saw a question pop in. What are some go-tos for breakfast in the Kimball home? Breakfast is tough, right? Because cereal, Pop-Tarts, waffles, there's a lot of sugar that's common in breakfast, and not very many vegetables and not a lot of nutrient dense food. So in our house, we're oatmeal and eggs people. We're a little bit boring. We do cereal once a week on Fridays. The kids love it. And I try for like healthier cereals, Aldi and or organic stuff like that, but that's not necessary. We could just do junk cereal, whatever. That's the cheat day. Is Friday is cereal day. We in our eggs we put a lot of greens for the adults. The kids, we're still working on them. The adults use a lot of our leftover vegetables from dinners, and so we have this big cast iron griddle that goes over 2 burners. And so for the adults, we throw on leftover veggies. We might cut up a sausage that's nitrate free. We might, if there's like a leftover hamburger, we might cut that up if we don't have sausage or whatever, and then mix that all up with some eggs. So that's kind of the go-to. But don't be afraid to eat dinner leftovers for breakfast. That's one of the more creative ones. And that's actually good for your brain to do something different that you don't expect. My kids, I have one child who just hates change. That child will not eat dinner leftovers for breakfast. So I don't do that to the kids. We do have a couple pancake recipes that are really veggie heavy, or use almond flour or coconut flour so that it's more nutrient dense, meaning that it will, it's not like quick carbs that burn off the energy quickly. It will stick with you so that you remain satiated and satisfied until lunchtime. So, but yeah, we do a lot of like overnight instant pot oatmeal and eggs and some pancakes. So breakfast. I have a whole breakfast book. I have 50 breakfast recipes. I'm just not always that creative in the morning. Isn't that funny? Okay, suggestions for group activities like potlucks, family dinners, and appetizers, helping our family make good choices without being those people. I love that question so much. I can't see that person's name. Um, that's so true, right? Because that's when it's like when the rubber hits the road, right? When you're in a group of other people and you and your family and your kids have to eat, that can be, that can be not so fun. So actually, you mentioned appetizers, and that is my strategy. Is I like to bring appetizers, and I try to bring appetizers that look like normal food, but that I know that I have made with healthy ingredients. So I'm actually going to pop a link here in the chat. So if you go to that link, there's a whole ebook that's free that I've written that's on like healthy party foods. Okay, so these are foods that look good to everyone, even people who aren't trying to eat healthy, but they're made with whole foods. And I focus more on appetizers because that's what you eat first, right? So then you can, and if your kids love it too, it's a dip, or like my kids love potato salad. So we'll make potato salad with pastured eggs and, mustard and no sweetener and whatever. Lots of good healthy fats. And then I try to like, oh, you guys eat some appetizers. Oh, there's that yummy potato salad that we brought. And I have the kids help too, and that you guys worked on because they want to eat more of things that they helped on. So those are my sneaky strategies. So then hopefully I know that my kids have something nutrient dense, something without sugar or empty carbs in their system at the appetizer phase of the meal. And then, it depends on the age when I let them make their own decisions. So Gabe is 5. We still are going to help serve him, and I'll serve very small servings when he says yes please to like the white flour pasta salad, and I'll serve a big serving when he says yes please to the carrots and guacamole dip or whatever. Right? The older my kids get, between about 8 and 10, depending on the child, I'm going to say something like, well, what feels good to your body, and what junk food does, and you know that your body can handle some junk food. So I want you to make your own choices today, but I do want you to make sure you think about how you feel. Okay. And they'll all have their moment of truth. My oldest Paul had his moment of truth, Halloween, 5th grade. Woo-wee, did he overdo it? Literally threw up the next day. And he's so embarrassed if I ever mention it. Like, he hated that so much. So he eats junk food, but he doesn't overdo it anymore. And I'm wondering, John, who's 8, just had a birthday party last week, and he doesn't even know how many pieces of pizza he ate. And I will say, he told me, he said, Mom, I chose the smallest piece of cake I could see because I knew I was getting too full. I was like, oh, right. My heart just melted. I was like, good for you, buddy. You were really thinking about it. And he still had a tummy ache for like 3 hours. So, we talked about like, well, maybe the pizza wasn't so happy for your belly there, buddy. And so that may be a moment in his life that he'll remember back on. So that's why I say, like, you do want to let your kids fail too, when you can talk to them about it in a non-judgmental voice and just say, well, how did that feel? How'd that go for you, buddy? So that's right. Strategy number 1 for parties is to bring good food, bring an appetizer so they eat it first. Strategy number 2 is to slowly release that power and control and let your kids make more decisions and be okay if they fail, because then that can be a conversation starter, because ultimately we want our kids to go off into the world able to make their own good decisions and not feel like their food and their cravings and their emotional eating habits are making their choices for them, right? Because that stinks. Because a bunch of us here, myself included, have built bad habits over the years, and it's so hard to get out of them. Okay, that was kind of a long answer. Let's see. And I know, you know what? Eating among other people is really related to a question a couple of people asked. So I know, like, Lisa said that, like, she offends other people in her extended family just because of the choices she's making. And that's such a bummer. So education is important, right? I like to talk to my extended family about why we make the choices we make. That can be uncomfortable sometimes, but if you can do it during a time that's not already like inflamed with an argument or a power struggle, that's better. And there were a couple other people who talked about extended families and then getting the spouse on board. We have a couple people. Michelle says she has trouble getting her family on board. Lynette has trouble finding things the whole family will eat. That's a little bit different. SJ is trying to get a resistant spouse to help model the healthy choices. Where else did I see that? Yeah, sorry. I know there were a couple other people. You guys asked such good questions in the emails. So, family, extended family, spouses, 2 different questions for sure. But I would encourage you, and if I went too quickly through the stages of change, like, grab the replay, we'll send it to you tomorrow, and maybe even just watch it like with your spouse if you can. Remember that you can't go right from, if someone is in, most of your family, if they're not on board, they're in pre-contemplation. They don't even see that there's a problem, right? They cannot go from there to action. It's not going to work. Their brain is not primed. So they need to think about it. They need to learn about it. They need to have time. And so you want to talk with them about some statistics. You want to talk with them about, maybe start asking them questions about how they feel when they eat certain things, and the problem is that our bodies adapt. So we can be eating something that would normally hurt us, but if we eat it all the time, our body actually adapts so that we don't feel it anymore, which is too bad. But if you would give it up for 3 days and then go back, or give it up for 3 weeks and then go back, then you'd feel it. But just like, so for me, it's all about conversation. And when it comes to kids and the spouse, the question is, what do we want our kids to be like when they grow up? And if you happen to have any sort of transformation from disease or losing weight or anything like that, what do we want our kids to enter adulthood like? Do we want them to enter with extra weight that they have to lose? Or do we want them to enter with good habits and lots of energy so that they can go to college and, get a degree or be an entrepreneur or learn a trade? But like, I want their brains to be able to focus on growing up and being an adult and not having this added pressure of like, oh, I need to lose weight already at age 20, or, oh, I have, a disease and I have to be one of those 60% of adults who have a chronic illness, right? Like, that's not what I want for my kids. And we know that diet and lifestyle makes a difference. We know that even if we can't see the problems happening in our kids now, like they're skinny, they're fine, they're healthy. But if you're fueling that vehicle with bad food, it's only a matter of time before it'll break down. So for me, that was my method. I will tell you that my husband and I have been married almost 17 years, and he was a pop drinking, cereal loving, totally not into healthy eating at all when we got married. And even once I was fully on board with healthy eating, like crazy town, stopped buying cereal, he would come in the house sometimes on the way home from work with cereal. Like, that's how different we were. That's how separated we were on this issue. And thank goodness, I mean, he never like sabotaged. He would just pick the green things out of his soup and hide them under his bowl. So at the very least, he and I were like on the page of, he's not going to be a bad example in front of the kids, because the kids do need to see that united front. And I think that's a very important spousal conversation to have. But over time, because he has seen healthy improvements that he's made, even, he's very skeptically made, he's seen those make huge changes in his life and in his health. He's seen changes in my life and in my health, and he's seen, he's just seen good things happen, right? So that helps. And like reading the statistics and stuff helps. So you can, send your spouse or extended family like a little link here and there, like, oh, this study says, or that study says. And bottom line is, even if their brains can't get on board, if they never believe that healthy eating is important, sometimes you just have to say, listen, like, do you love me? Do you love our kids? And do you want to sow dissension here in this family? Or can you allow me to make these choices that I feel so strongly about, and I will do the work, and I just need you to not disagree publicly, right? Like, that may be where you have to be, hopefully temporarily. And you can hope that, again, it took my husband 10 years to make that whole transfer through all those stages of change. Isn't that crazy? It's a 10-year process. So that's our story. And I've interviewed him if you want to see it. And he talks to guys, and he'll tell guys, husbands, listen, this is your role. And it's pretty cool. I don't know if Sonia can find that link or not, but if you want it, ask for it in the chat. We'll find it for you. Couple other questions that came in through email. A lot of people talked about time and convenience foods, and I do think we covered that. I mean, you make the things homemade that count the most with the least time, like dry beans, chicken broth, homemade yogurt, and stuff like that. A lot of people talk about the struggle with planning ahead and wanting some convenience food, and I would say, especially at this point, like, God bless your convenience food. You let some of it come in. If that's making the 80% or the 60% of other things you're doing possible, then you just got to forgive yourself that convenience food and set that as a goal for later. You know what I mean? A couple of you who have teenagers, and where'd those names go? I know it was like a Michelle and I forgot. I wanted to organize these, and then more questions came in. Kristen. Yeah, Michelle and Kristen have 3 teenagers each in their home, and they're like, I used to be able to keep up, but I can't keep up. And I'm like, I hear you. I can already see it happening in the Kimball house. Guys, if you have teenagers, you got to get your kids on board and making some of their own food. Okay. Because it's too easy for them to grab convenience food, right? So I would say have the convenience food, but encourage them to learn to cook. That's what I do at Kids Cook Real Food. But if you can get those teenagers to help you, you can keep your head above water with feeding them, but they've got to be on board too. And so remember, their brain's got to go through the stages of change, and it's not quite as logical as ours. So they might not get there, but you just kind of keep trying. A couple people talked about just not having enough energy at the end of the day. And so they end up getting fast food. And I'd say that's a really vicious cycle. For those gals, and maybe I won't use their names, but that's a tough cycle when you don't have enough energy to make the food you want to make, and then you get fast food, and fast food does tend to like make you feel heavy and probably like depletes your energy for the next day. For that, I think meal planning is the most powerful strategy that you can implement. And so whenever you look at your week and you think you do have a little bit of energy, and for a lot of people that's Sundays, for some people maybe it's Saturday, maybe it's like the very beginning of the day, Monday morning, it's a new week, you're starting off excited. If you can meal plan, it's a huge first step because you give yourself some momentum. Okay. And even again, things like having a big bowl of broth or a big bowl of beans in the fridge, you're like, oh, well, if I order fast food, then I'd like kind of waste this. And it's kind of like halfway done already. So maybe I'll just finish it. I think that's super huge. I think having your kids help out is an investment at the beginning, but that can help as well, where you're all sharing the work. At this point in my life, my kids make dinner once a week, or at least they'll start that up again when wrestling's over. Oh, high school sports are intense. So I get it if your high schooler's not making dinner. My kids usually make dinner once a week. My husband makes dinner twice a week because he's amazing because he's gone through all those stages of change now. So I actually feel like life is doable at this point. And I don't have to order fast food because I get 3 nights off a week. So I don't want to make you jealous. That's kind of like an anomaly. And that has just happened in the past year that we've finally reached that stage. So yeah, not having energy to cook is definitely about planning ahead, even chopping ahead. Cynthia's another one who said it's hard to find time to eat healthy. It's just easier to drive through, right? It's easier to pick stuff up. Sonia gave a good point in the chat. Also try making one healthy meal and double it. Freeze the second half for a rundown day. Fauna asks, what are some go-to super fast meals for lunch or dinner or key ingredients? And yeah, totally. It's all about the key ingredients. I tell people a lot that I plan for my like crazy days when I just might want to call for pizza when I grocery shop. I'm going to make sure that I have some gluten-free crackers, that I have some cheese, celery for ants on a log. Any kids who will eat ants on a log, that's like a nice quick, bread free. We don't do a lot of bread in our house. Lunch for us, lunches are almost always leftovers because if I make a meal, it's going to be a double batch, and I don't freeze it. We just eat it as leftovers. So those, let's see, what do I do super fast meals? So those are like convenience foods, are like my sausage meal with maybe some fried potatoes or something, or there's some decent ingredients, salmon burgers and grass-fed hamburgers at Costco. So that's like oh my gosh, like we totally didn't have time to make anything. Breakfast for dinner is always good. Shoot, I should know more. I should know more of these. I know that I have other quick, healthy meals. Oh, I know. One of my go-tos is beef and cabbage over rice. So it's a pound of ground beef, 2 onions, and a half a head to a head of cabbage, and some garlic, salt, and pepper. That's it. And just chop it all up, throw it in the pot, put the rice in the Instant Pot, and done. So that's a really quick and easy one. But I think, really like everybody kind of needs to find their own. It's about thinking about foods that your family likes and will eat that you can make quickly, and then making sure that you have those things stocked. We always have dry beans and canned beans. We always have frozen meat. We always have cheese and eggs, and usually some sausages. So I always tell my kids, like, you will never go hungry. We always have food. Sometimes it's in ingredient form, but as long as you can cook, you will never go hungry. Veggies and hummus, veggies and guac is another really good one too. And Instant Pot meals that are healthy. Ooh, we have lots of those. I think most Instant Pot meals are, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's lots that are unhealthy. Any Instant Pot meal I've ever made is usually like some meat and some sauce, and it's generally like really homemade. Let me see if I can grab a link. When my husband was learning to cook, so I just told you that he's cooking twice a week now, which is like amazing and insane. So a couple years ago, he said, well, you seem really stressed out. Maybe I should like learn to cook something. And you can take pictures of it in the Instant Pot and write a post. And I'm like, that's hilarious. So I just put the link in the chat. That's the post we ended up writing, was 10 Instant Pot recipes even a guy could make. And people didn't like that, so we changed the title. But that was his idea to say, these are so easy, like even I can make them, and I'm a total dunce in the kitchen. So those are a lot. There's a ton of easy Instant Pot recipes that are basically mix a few ingredients to make a sauce, you throw in some meat, you turn it on, you're good. steam some vegetables, maybe some rice next to it, and you're totally good to go. I'm skimming my email questions one more time. I think we talked about energy. We talked about spouses. We talked about time management. Yeah, busy mornings. Breakfast is tough. I would say I'm not doing this a lot right now, and it's just the way I'm choosing to spend my time. But if I needed grab and go breakfasts and I didn't have time to make eggs, I would spend more time on the weekend making muffins and making like pancakes that could quickly be reheated, or like muffins that are really super moist that could just be easily grabbed. We have this muffin recipe that's like so completely foolproof. I'm going to try to find it here. Hang on. It's completely foolproof. Like you cannot mess it up. It's like completely allergy friendly, and they're so moist you don't even have to like heat them up. So if I needed quick grab and go breakfast, I would make ahead on a weekend and just use the same thing all week. Cool. I hope that helps. Yeah, breakfasts are tough. I get tired of oatmeal and eggs, and then I'll bust out my breakfast book and grab a recipe. But a lot of this is solved by planning ahead, and like we've been talking about, building habits bit by bit by bit. Do not try to do this all at the same time, okay, ladies? Well, I think it's mostly ladies here. Don't try to do this all at the same time. And I know a lot of you look at your table and you go, ugh, I know I have kids who aren't going to eat everything I make. And that's okay, right? Just make meals with multiple pieces, which is great anyway. So you have your meat, your vegetable, you might have your soup with like a side bread and a salad and some raw veggies. As long as your kids have something they like on the table, they're not going to starve. And so maybe they won't eat the main course every night. And that's okay. They can backslide too. The same as we have to like get their brains used to maybe a newer way of eating. So that's kind of the key. I'm not there yet. I don't think I'm in termination with very many steps. I think I'm still sort of in maintenance. I'm in termination with like a couple pieces of healthy living where I've just been, but it's only because I've been doing it so long that like going back would feel weird. That's when you're in termination, which is really super cool. Yeah, you can do this. Guys, you can totally do this. That's my biggest message for you today, is that with small baby steps, lots of grace, understanding you will backslide and that's okay and it's expected, and you just get up, dust yourself off, and take the next step, that eventually in 2 years, like if you made one tiny change every week and you backslid on 20 or 30% of those changes, even still in 2 years, you're going to look back and you're going to go, oh my goodness, that used to be my household and now it's this, and it's totally different. And I'm so happy about that. So give yourself lots of time to get that perspective, right? I can look back on my early marriage and go, oh, 40 boxes of cereal in the basement, 10 for $10 hamburger helper, conventional everything, no organics, had no idea what I was doing, bottled dressing, bagged salad, like that was the healthy piece, right? It was the bagged salad. And I can look back and go, wow, I've made so many changes. I just have a radically different household, but it didn't happen all in one day. It didn't happen all in one day. It happened week after week at a time, day after day, building tiny habits and doing them enough until they became a habit, and not letting myself make another change until I felt comfortable with the changes I was currently juggling. Cool? All right. That's my goal for you guys. I know you can do this. I have total faith in you. If you want help with just some weekly little instructions on some of the stuff we talked about today, I will send those to you as Monday missions. If you don't get your email tomorrow, email me and I'll make sure you get it. Okay, good. I think we're done. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Katie Kimball from Kitchen Stewardship. From the whole Kitchen Stewardship team to you, we are here to support you in helping your family stay healthy without going crazy. You guys have a beautiful day.